I promised in a previous video that we are going to talk a little bit about past lives. And I got a message yesterday and I understood why we still refer to something as a past life, because we still carry the same energy and the energy is building and transmuting and transforming into something else. If you're experiencing some difficulties in your life in form of disease or any kind of problems, it could be, and it probably is, that it originated in a past life. And it's not an excuse. It's something what I have experienced too. When I was 1 year old, I've been tortured and I have a huge trauma. I've been basically tortured in a hospital because I had burns from a very burning hot water on half of my body. And in the past, the blisters which form in a half of the little baby body were taken and ripped off, of the skin. And whenever I saw hospital until today, I have a very big block of this energy, and I didn't have it for a really long time in my life because I was even a healthcare professional and I was spending a lot of time in the hospital, and this opened just after I was in this planet for really long, after I finished university now, and it started to open for me. This is not like that you know it from the very beginning of your life. And I was wondering why I was tortured, because the doctor took my little body, like, I was 1 year old, and he closed myself with him without my mother, because in past you did that, and he started to rip off these things off my body. I don't know what was happening, how many people were holding me there. I don't know anything, because my body has total blank. And since that time I have a trauma, and I remember when I was 5 years old, and they wanted to give me like tetanus jab, when you get a vaccination. There had to be like 4 or 5 people holding me because I didn't want them to get to my body, and there were so many, and I was convulsing, and I couldn't make it, and I didn't understand why I was behaving like that, why I'm still traumatized from very early age, and I couldn't do anything with that trauma. And I realized that I'm carrying it from the past life. It wasn't meant to be this life, and I was like, okay, I wish I would never have this trauma in my life, but actually it is carried, and that's why it's so reminded early in life. And if you have your traumas reminded to you early in your life, charging you with certain energy which you have to deal with through this lifetime, it's absolutely needed. I also don't want to accept that it's very needed, but this is what we are here, and we are mystics, and we are supposed to transmute this energy. And now when I started to be aware that I've been carrying this.
And how did you make the link between your past life and this early childhood experience?
Oh, yeah, I had in probably 2015-16, my body broke down and I was having a lot of like burnout symptoms and some condition I had to deal with. I was doing certain one brain method and unblocking, and I had very vivid, like a mystical experience while I was sitting in the room, and I didn't know about that I'm having a mystical experience. I didn't understand that, but I saw me having my body and certain skills which I didn't get it. I didn't think that it's real, but I was just taken there, that I was touching the floor like in Avatar, and there was these glowing things, and I was seriously hurt in that imagery, or in that vision. And I was hunted in a forest. It looked also like Alps or something where we were now, and I was hunted by a lot of men, and they wanted my energy, and you can imagine what happened to me there. But I in that unblocking experience, or in the one brain method, I was reprogramming me, And all of a sudden I had no experience with mysticism or anything. And I started to say, oh my gosh, my body is glowing. And I was in the reality of 3D. And I wasn't in any meditation. And I was like feeling and saying, oh my gosh, my body is full of light. I'm totally on light. I'm like light, you know. I was like a light ball, and it was very intense, you know, and the light is protecting us. And I didn't feel that it's necessary to go back to this experience. But then something happened in my life. And I've been through a lot of self-work. And then I went to this lady in 2024. And I was on her table, and she was doing energy work, but she was supposed to do normal osteopathy with me. But all of a sudden, she told me that story. And it was...
Without you telling her first.
I didn't tell her anything. I don't tell these stories to anybody because I am a very analytical person, originally, I thought. So she told me that story, and she said, okay, I can't tell you more because you were seriously half dead, half alive, and you have lived your life like this. And that's why my second life, I connected the dots. And yesterday or a few days of the process, I started to understand that that's why I had the trauma so early on in my life, that I now have new body. And even though I was going through some difficulties with my body, I still have there this trauma in the energy. So I could detect that it was from past lives. That's why I processed it this way. And
wow.
Yeah, and I wanted to share this with you because your problems also could originate from your past life. And you're maybe mad also at yourself. Why am I having this energy? Why am I still carrying it? Why am I dealing with this and not something else, and so on? But it's great. Okay, we will have to accept that this is what we didn't finish. And we have to now, or we don't have to, but it's going to stick with us. Like in a Red Lion, the main hero of a Red Lion had to relive so many lifetimes until he finally got into this point where he could become a mystic and where he could transmute his energy and get it and finally understand. Not even understand, right? It's something higher than understanding.
I believe that everything happens for a reason, and if we have these traumas in early childhood, it's not just things that we have to work through because they happen in this lifetime. I believe that they already happened because of something that we previously were working on, that we have to continue in this new lifetime, that we can work through it. It's just very difficult because you can't explain to a little child who is held by several doctors and tortured to say, oh, they're just caring for you, this is a medical procedure, they want to help you. You can't explain it to a child. The trauma is so deep, and sometimes you only remember it many years later, or some problem that is originating from that only starts to occur in your life much later, that you have panic attacks or have certain challenges.
Yeah.
And then we are going back to this moment. Sometimes it's not always necessary that we have to relive it or review it.
I didn't even want to go there. I never thought I will get there. I wasn't consciously working on that. It just took me there. And then the moment started to be real when that lady told me exactly the same things. So I was like, okay, there is something
because
strange.
It is relevant for your evolution now. And that's something that meditation sometimes also can provide for us, but you were not even in a meditation, that you have this vision, this memory, because it is relevant for your evolution. But I also know people who work through years or lifetimes of trauma within short periods of time without even connecting to that trauma, without even reliving it or reviewing it or memorizing it. They just move through it and all of a sudden feel lighter, liberated, free, and they can't even explain why or what they went through, but the process can also happen like this.
I would just say that it's something which activated in me this kind of skill or something. So I was then having a lot of dreams about past lives and how I was leaving my body and in certain situations and in certain forests. Of course, I don't know the location in our 3D reality, but in a certain forest, and I saw me, for example, exiting the body and so on. It was very strange. I didn't watch any movies about it. It was like really 10 years ago or so. It wasn't a thing in the past, and it was really something which I didn't even understand why I have such dreams or why I'm in there. And I feel that we are all spiritual beings, we are all energy, and we have to really pay attention to these things. You just switch off your phone and you switch off your devices and just really pay attention what is there for you and what is there in you. Sometimes I just let some old movies play and I am feeling a bit more safe in those old movies. I don't know why. So yeah, I also escape, from my 3D to the fantasy world. But who knows what's the real world? Who knows that?
We also just recently created an online class. It's a 6-day process where we guide you really to release your guilt, your unworthiness, and move into this state where you can start to create your future and your life. And if you're somebody who is not really knowing where to start, okay, I heard about meditations, I heard about this practice and that. If you don't know where to start, this is a really beautiful way as a beginner to ease yourself into some spiritual practice. We have there 4 guided meditations. They're very simple, under 15 minutes, and it really gives you this sacred time which you take for yourself.
And I even made me analytical person who I thought I am analytical. I made fairytations. I combined artistically meditation and fairy tale, and I will put you into the state where you will feel more compassion toward yourself. And when you will start to go on a journey which will open up those gates for you, which you are not even accessing now because we are so much involved in outside of the world and how we are supposed to function here that we forget to be playful and in this magical, mystical world where I'll take you in my fairytations. And the intention behind all of this is you will feel much more compassion, you will become more loving to yourself, and your overall feeling of your life will be much more loving. Like you will feel so cozy in your life.
The online class is called This Is Your Way Back, and you'll find more information in the video description below. Thank you so much for being with us today, and if you would like to share some more time with us, we also have this video here for you next.